Okay, welcome back to Hindustan Astrology. I'm Katya, and in this next episode of Interviews with the Gurus, I have back my dear mentor, Dr. Santhip Kanholy. Thank you so much for joining me again.
Sure, yeah. Namaste, Katya.
Yeah. So we're continuing our series of the grahas or the planets through the nakshatras. And in this session, we're going to talk about Saturn, whose name is Shani. And this is very fortuitous and good timing because right now he is stationing direct as we record this. And in 2 days, he will go out of retrograde on the 28th. So I'm very excited for that. And also the moon is in Capricorn today with Saturn as well. So there's a very Saturnian vibe going on today, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, definitely, yeah, for sure, yeah. A lot of work for everyone. So definitely Saturn is keeping us busy.
And it's Saturday.
Yeah, that too. Well, great. Okay, so I'll begin to share my screen. Let's see, it should come through soon. Okay. So yeah, with Shani, it's kind of a different kind of a thing, because Shani is actually one of the most feared grahas in Jyotish. If people are afraid about their Saturn period and so forth. It's one of those things. You could say that people are afraid about, oh, am I going through my Saturn period, or am I going through my Sadasati? That kind of thing is very, very strong. The fear of Saturn is a very strong thing as far as Jyotish is concerned. People, even with Jyotishis also themselves, when they go through certain period, they begin to encounter fear as an actual emotion. It's very important to recognize the energies of Shani is very much about aligning ourselves with reality. Shani is actually connected with the Muladhara chakra, or the root chakra, which is literally connected with survival issues, with our reality, with the foundation in life, the roots that we should be establishing in life. So if we have failed to establish proper roots, Saturn comes in and forces us to establish proper roots. That's the job of Shani or Saturn. That's really what it's really about. It's not really a graha to be feared as much as you should be fearful of any other graha. It's equally in potential with all other grahas also. But in this day and age, because we live in an age when the roots are not that much valued, so it's kind of like having its own kind of problems. You could say that. I mean, it's a human thing in this day and age compared to like what was the case 100,000 years ago, whatever, at that point. Now let's see. So now here again, I'll begin to continue the journey with Shani by understanding more about his nakshatras. So remember, we'll go about each of these in further detail. But this is a summary of all the nakshatras that could possibly be linked with Shani or Saturn. We have Shani ruling Aquarius and Capricorn. Shani is Shani nakshatras are falling in Cancer sign in Pushya. In Scorpio, it is the Anuradha nakshatra. And you have in Pisces, the Uttarabhadrapada nakshatra, which I've shown here. And then interestingly, you also find a Saturn kind of energy present in the nakshatras falling in Saturn ruled signs as well. You find Uttarashada, Shravana, and Dhanishta carrying some influence of Shani. And similarly, again, the rest of the nakshatras listed here, Dhanishta, Satabhisha, and Purabhadrapada. That is also having a link here as well. And then, of course, the one logic which I've been trying to share through the series here is that how you had to be looking at the debilitation point, the Multragon point, and the exaltation point of every planet to have a deeper understanding of the energies of the planet and so forth, how it actually manifests in our life and so forth also. So here again, the Saturn ruled nakshatras are Pushya, Anuradha, and Uttarabhadrapada. Now, what is very important about these nakshatras are, you can see that immediately you can see the Saturn ruled nakshatras are actually falling in the water signs. So it's a very important thing. Who would actually think about Shani being linked with moksha signs, right? So remember, Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces are the moksha signs of the zodiac also, of the natural zodiac. So it's a very important thing to think about Shani as being a very important planet that is literally the foundation for moksha or greater liberation. So we all believe, yeah, we all believe that we are stuck here on this planet, though we have come from different worlds and so forth. Shani is a planet that actually helps you in clearing of the karma so that you can actually leave this planet. So it's one of those things just to recognize. It's a very important thing to recognize also. Now, what I'm calling as the VIP Nakshatras of Saturn is basically the points where it's getting exalted, which is Swati, which is intimately linked with the breath, as Swati is linked with Vayu, the god of wind. So you have a breath connection with Shani. And in fact, Shani is the planet. The easiest way to control or improve your Shani Dasha is to have a pranayam practice. Just have a 5 to 10 minute pranayam kind of practice thing going on. You'll see the immediate difference on how your Shani is actually impacting you also. You'll begin to see that. And then directly opposite to Swati is Bharani Nakshatra, where Shani is getting debilitated. Now you can see that the debilitation point is connected with the birth. Bharani is the nakshatra associated with birth. Now you can imagine how challenging a birth is. Mother having to go to a birth, you have to carry the child for like 9 months and then finally give the birth. Even the birthing process itself is a big challenge also. So you can see all that. So Shani is actually the planet that is trying to give birth to a new you. So that's a very important thing to recognize also. And then of course, what is interesting about Satabisha is actually connected with the healing waters. It is the nakshatra associated with Varuna. Varuna is the god of the cosmic ocean, and it's associated with the 100 healers also. So you can really see that Shani is the real planet that is connected with healing. In many cases, when you're doing healing work, even if it be astrological work also, you're kind of engaged in the healing kind of area of the other person's life. So Satabisha is actually carrying the healing water kind of theme, and we'll kind of go deeper into the Satabisha part a little bit, but recognize that Shani is intimately linked with these three nakshatras. Now, whenever you are analyzing your Saturn in the chart, try to look at what other planets are placed in these three nakshatras also. You will find Saturn does very well with the planet in Swati nakshatra. Saturn might find it challenging when it's Bharani nakshatra, with any planet in Bharani nakshatra. And with Multragon nakshatra of Satabisha, it might be fairly decent, might be able to handle it in an easier fashion and so forth also. Remember, the exaltation point is like the great resort. The debilitation point is like the bad motel, and Multragon is like your home office. That's the easiest way to think about it. Now, the Multragon sign of Cancer is actually Aquarius. And as I showed before, the 0 to 20 degrees of Aquarius is actually majority of it is actually covering Satabisha Nakshatra. And Aquarius is actually symbolized by a man carrying a water pot. And that's a very, very important thing to recognize. Now, wherever you can see here's a mural, well, here's a statue of a lady carrying a water pot, and Aquarius is having a lot of stories around a man carrying water pot, and there is a modern day water pot which is being carried, and these are the earthen pots in which you would normally carry water. So that's the other aspect also. Now here's the other interesting aspect of Shani. Wherever there is a water pot, you can actually activate Aquarius. So there's an actual way to think about that. So say you have a bird fountain, you can think of it as a modern day water pot. You can actually activate Aquarius to that. You are improving your Shani karma and so forth. Think about what a man carrying a water pot would have to do. He would have to serve water to everyone, right? And it doesn't matter who came to collect the water also. So there's an actual element of healing that is coming with pure service. So the water pot itself is a very powerful symbol of service to the larger community. So that's an actually important aspect of Shani as well. Now we'll look. What is interesting about the water pot, which is called as Kumbha. Remember the Aquarius Rashi is actually called as the Kumbha Rashi. And what you see, the Kumbha Rashi is there is actually something called as the Kumbha Mela that happens in in Haridwar. Well, in India there are 4 main cities where the largest gathering of yogis and religious devotees happen. Because the legend goes that every 4 years, the kumbha, the nectar of the pot that was carrying the nectar of immortality, the kumbha of Amrit, had four of these, each of his drops fallen, these four holy cities. Now, when the time comes, usually when it's around, when sun is close to Kumbh Rashi, you find that, there's a huge gathering of yogis that happen, in these, and you can see it's crowded. What they're trying to do is that they're trying to capture the nectar that was originally derived from, the churning of the cosmic ocean. And that particular nectar's drops actually fell down to these four cities, apparently. Now, it said that the times are auspicious, then they reverse. Because they fell into the rivers at those in those cities become very holy spots where you can actually access that nectar of immortality. So it's a very important time period for many devotees, especially in North India, where they definitely go to these cities and they take a dip in these waters and so forth. And it's a huge gathering of yogis and so forth, It's a very huge gathering. And usually it's happening when sun is actually either in Capricorn and Aquarius. So that's when the season begins. You have a month-long time period in which the Shivratri is kind of the end point for that, for that particular festival. But this is still to date the largest gathering that still happens in the world.
Wow.
Hundreds of thousands of people go. There's no problems. There's no stampedes, nothing like that. It's like an organically, organized kind of thing. So it's one of those things there. But yeah, again, remember the point I'm raising here is because of two reasons. One, Kumbha is actually connected with the nectar of immortality, the pot of in the Amrit. That is one thing there. The second thing is that with Kumbha, the other aspect is also, you remember Satyabhisha is also the place where 100 healers have gathered.
Yes.
So there is an actual healing that happens when there is a large gathering of yogis, when the group consciousness of any group is much more powerful than the individual consciousness. So that's what is actually happening here. So here you are having the 100 healers being activated. Here you are having the whole community at work. That is what is actually happening. So because of which you can think about any place where there is a gathering, Aquarius is always activated. It is almost literally the 100 healers at work. It's almost literally the Kumbha at work, the Kumbha Rashi at work. It's a very important thing to recognize also. Now, what is interesting about Kumbha itself, the water pot, the pot, it's an actual symbol of auspiciousness in many traditions. So you find the Buddhist traditions, they have 7 different sacred objects. Well, I think 8 sacred objects, of which one of them is like the wheel, the other is like this knot, the other is flower, there's a conch shell, there's a couple of fishes and all that. And of which you also have a water pot, which is actually considered to be, it's called as a pumpa, represents throat, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, but still it's considered as an auspicious symbol. But this is an actual thing you see much more common in Indian rituals and so forth, especially in Vedic rituals where they actually have a kumbha, in which you might have a water pot, having some mangoes in it and having some coconut in it. In fact, it used to be a practice that they would actually get a blessed coconut from a temple. You would keep that on top of mango leaves. You'll fill this water pot with water. You put some mango leaves around, put some flowers here, put the coconut on top of it, and you would actually honor it. It's an interesting kind of thing, and it's supposed to carry the energy. Apparently, there are some spiritual groups that say that there's a lot more energetically happening when you do so. It's almost like you are activating 3 different kinds of waves, from what I am understanding. It's almost like you can see there's a representative symbolically of the manifest form of divine principle with the waves that are energy that are coming in. And then you have the emission of divine consciousness in the form of circle that is happening around the water pot, just indicated here. You have the particles of divine consciousness being formed inside the water pot, and absolute water principle in the form of circles. So you have a principle of water being invoked here also, and subtle sound vibration. Now, what usually happens is that you would have a kumbha like this established, and then you would chant mantras to it. And so that the kumbha is actually vibrating, that water inside that is being resonating with the mantras around. And that energy of the mantras is actually stored in the water. Now, in fact, this is a very simple practice even now. When you chant mantras, ideally when you have a water pot in front of you, just a copper vessel or something like that. When you do that, actually when you chant mantras and so forth, when you drink water from that water pot after you chant mantras, that's an easy way to get more energy into your system also. Because that water inside that thing, that covered water port is actually getting more energy within that, trapped within that also. And it's a very simple thing, but this is actually this is having a ritualistic side to it also. A ritualistic side in which very powerful rituals require the presence of a kumbha. In fact, many deities are sometimes installed in kumbha, for instance. That's an actual thing.
Did you put like a cup of water on top of a picture of a yantra? Would the yantra resonate into the water?
Yeah, definitely, 100%.
Okay.
I think that's a legitimate technique.
I've been working with the 432 hertz coasters, and I put my glass on top of the coaster, and the 432 hertz helps to rearrange it.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. There are many ways to use water. Definitely, what you shared is one definitely easy way. Just put a water on picture of a yantra, the easiest way. Of course, this is like a more complicated ritualistic way, but this is having its own thing too. It's like it's a long drawn thing. It's a such kind of thing. Also,
Yeah,
it's one of those things.
Right. Well, it makes sense. I mean, with Varuna being the deity of Shatabhishek and pouring the water, most people don't associate the element of air with Saturn, but actually I heard on an astronomy channel that if you were to take the actual planet of Saturn, and it's like it's lighter than air, like the actual planet. It's a gas planet. It's very light. It's not solid mass or water like this planet. So it's, we usually think of it being so heavy, but the heaviness comes from the magnetic field. That's where the heaviness comes from, not from the density of the planet. So.
Yeah, definitely. Saturn is definitely a Vata planet, as you said it. It's an airy planet. So definitely Saturn feels you stressed, with the details and so forth. So it's one of those things why you need to have your air in control, or doing the pranayama or your breathing practices in control to help you out on that regard. Different, no doubt about that. Now, here what I want to do with the kumbha or the water pod, the ritualistic kumbha, is I want to try to make you think differently about this kumbha. So I'm curious, how would you connect, because this has been what I've been trying to do so far in the series, right? So what I'm trying to share here is that how can you, or even ask here to you catchers, like how would you connect Saturn VIP nakshatras, the three nakshatras where it's getting exalted, debilitated, and is Multrikon nakshatras with this kumbha? How would you associate that? What would you try to make of it?
Well,
which portion could be linked with which nakshatra and so forth? Go ahead, yeah.
Swati's Vishvakarma, the celestial architect, and when you're designing, you're putting.
Well, remember, Swati is actually Vayu, right? The god of wind.
Vayu. I'm sorry. Yes. Yeah. Gosh, I'm off tonight. See, Saturn is getting to me. He's getting me today. Yes. I'm sorry. Vayu. So, I was thinking Chitra.
Chitra, yeah. Well, definitely you could say there's a design aspect to the pod. That is true. That's true. You could.
Right, but that's Chitra. So for Swati, for Vayu, I don't know. I'm gonna have to say. Obviously, we know this one. For Barney, I mean that's the female, yoni, birth canal. So I could see that being, symbolic of this. It's almost like a womb kind of thing going on. But I don't know about Swati.
Right. Well, here's the thing, right? So you can see Swati is connected with the breath or the air element very strongly. So that's why Saturn is considered as exalted here. Because the deity of the nakshatra itself is airy. You can't get more Saturnian than that. And then you have Satabhisha, which is the healing waters, which is definitely the water inside the pot. Right? Now, what is interesting, remember Swati is connected with the air. Coconut is something you actually pluck from the air. So it's not hanging down, it's not on the fruit, and it's not on the ground. So you actually have to pluck it from the air. So you can actually connect Swati or the airy part, airy element of this nakshatra with the actual coconut that is placed on the top of it. And then you have Satabhisha, which is a water that is kept hidden inside the water pot. The whole water pot becomes Satabhisha. Well, but the water, especially within the water pot, is actually Satabhisha. And then the birth thing, the Barney becomes the boundary. You'll see that Yama is huge on boundaries, right? So the actual water pot is actually Barney. And literally, what is interesting is that Barney, remember when you have a pickle jar, right? You put a jar of pickles. The pickle inside is basically the fermented liquid, the fermented thing, which is actually Satabisha, And then the Barney is actually the jar. And literally in my language, Barney literally translates as to, it's like a jar, a mason jar, for instance. That's basically a Barney, And you can see that. So you can see that the water pot as being Barney. The water inside as being a Satabisha, the healing water that is present. The mantras charging those waters and making it more powerful in terms of its healing capacity. And finally, you do have the mango leaves here, which is interestingly linked with Purabhadrapada Nakshatra, which is falling in Aquarius also. So you find double activation of Aquarius happening here on account of a water pot and also that. And then finally you have a coconut symbolic of the Swati Nakshatra also. So you can see that in the Kumbha Rashi, especially in long drawn rituals and so forth, where 3 or 4 priests are chanting the same mantra, you find, and so that they're charging that water pot with mantras, you begin to see that they are actually activating Saturn in nakshatras in very obvious and hidden ways, So it's one of those things to think about. But again, to emphasize this again, Aquarius is also literally Kumbh Rashi, and wherever you have a water pot, you can actually activate the Aquarius. Now, in modern day, these are the water purifiers in your home. The water filters that you have in your home and so forth. And now, the easiest way to improve Saturn, just simply have a bird fountain. When a community event is happening, give water to people. When festivals are happening, just give water and sweets to people. The easy way is that. When you do that, you are actually improving your Saturn, because you're literally becoming the water bearer yourself, So that's a different way to think about Saturn, and it's one of those things you can begin to see when you carefully look for it. So like I said, the pot is the womb. The mango leaves and water becomes close to Satabisha, and Rahu is the coconut, That's basically what I shared. But again, this is something, you don't say it, but you have to really think about it. And you will always see this kind of thing actually becoming important also. Now, a very important bird with respect to Saturn is that of crows, Now, crows are very important birds. In fact, you'll find a lot of people trying to improve their Saturn by feeding crows. And this funny thing about crows is that no crows are always alone. There's always a bunch of crows always around a crow, crows and ravens, right? So you have the whole birds attacking in if I remember the Hitchcock movie, birds. But what is interesting about crows is that crows are actually monogamous and raise families together. Offspring from previous seasons even remain with the family to help rear new nestling. There's a strong sense of community with the crows, Crows can recognize human faces and will even hold grudges against people they don't like. In fact, I had a student say that a crow would attack him consciously because he threw stone at a crow some time ago or something like that.
Yes, they have
and crows are actually intelligent.
And they will remember if someone in their flock does something wrong, they'll punish them. And same with humans. I mean, that's why Native Americans say that crow is law, cosmic law.
Yeah, so you see that strongly. Now, interestingly, crows are also pranksters. Crows love to pull tails. It's a strategy they use to distract an animal from eating, so they can steal its food. And they've also been known to do it just for fun also. So you see that, Crows pass the marshmallow test. They resist the temptation to eat a food if they know a tasty treat is coming later. This test of self-control is used to assess mental development in humans. Crows are actually very powerfully mentally developed. Crows are quite similar to humans. They visit their aging parents many years after they have left the nest, and that's an actual thing. It's a very important thing also. And finally, of course, we know the story about how the crow tried to drink the water, and how the necessity is the mother of invention, right? The crow would put in a lot of stones so that it could drink the water from the jar. So exactly that. Yeah, now crows are very important. Crows are also very pure Saturnian animals. It's very important. Feeding crows, taking care of crows is very good. Even it's a common.
Black is Saturn.
Yeah, exactly that. Straight up you go. So that's why you see ancient time witches have this typical depiction. They have a black cat and they might also have a black crow also. They are actually, in my opinion, when they take care of a crow, they are actually taking care of Saturn kind of Saturn kind of energy. That's what is a big reason why there was a crow always associated with that, Now again, Saturn through its nakshatras here of Pushya, Anuradha, and Uttarabhadrapada. You can think about Saturn through Pushya as the mother who sweeps. In fact, you might, there's the mother who's kind of taking care of you. Saturn is definitely carrying that mother energy so that Saturn is trying to ensure that your karmas that need to be gotten rid of is actually gotten rid of. It's almost like a very nurturing mother feeling to it. And many times you find very powerful goddess practices linked with Saturn. That is also one of the things you see that. Then Saturn is also literally in Anuradha nakshatra is literally like a friend who will never desert you. Anuradha is the best friend nakshatra. You'll find all these best friend qualities, the friends who are still staying by your side, all those are actually having a Saturn kind of energy to them. There's some real karmas to be there. And of course, Uttarabhadrapada nakshatra, it is actually, connected with the steady, calm energy. And what is interesting here with Uttarabhadrapada nakshatra is that it is sometimes it is linked the tortoise that is a character in the story of the churning of the cosmic ocean. The mountain that is put on the tortoise, and then you have the mountain, and the snake was actually used to pull, to pull the mountain to churn the cosmic ocean and so forth, so that you could actually extract Amrit and so forth, So, but Uttarabhadrapada Nakshatra natives have been through a lot. That's what they say. You don't see the ice that is below the ocean. That's exactly what the nature of an Uttarabhadra Nakshatra native is. But then it's almost like pointing to the experiences that you have been in life that is giving you the calm within. That's literally what Uttarabhadrapada is all about. These are the experiences that are in the 12th house of your mind, that is in your past, that is literally the calm within you. So in summary, you can literally think about Saturn as the healing waters that is bringing about a new birth with your every breath. That's what Saturn is trying to do. Remember, again, healing waters is linked with Satyabhisha. Birth is actually linked with Bharani, and Swati is linked with breath. So it's a very important aspect. And you find Saturn trying to do the same thing. Saturn is exactly trying to heal your karma away and trying to bring about a new you with every action that you eventually take. Now, eventually that action you take should eventually evolve towards every speech you say, every thought you think, and eventually every breath that you take also. That's why you find yogis doing a lot of pranayama practices so that they can steady their mind and corresponding their speech and their actions also eventually. It's a very important thing. You begin to see that that's the essence of Saturn in many ways, but you don't see it immediately. Usually, and Saturn do get a bad rub. It does have, many times we ourselves have brought about karma that are challenging and so forth. And that's one of those aspects in this domain at least. So that is one way to think about it. But remember, Saturn in general, in the end, it is actually about healing you and bringing about a new birth also. It's a very important aspect to think about. So yeah, Katya, that's what I have. Any questions on Saturn or any comments or something like that so far?
Well, we could talk a little bit about Sati Sati because that's so important for Saturn. It's for people that don't know, it's when transiting Saturn is crossing over your moon in your natal chart. And it's the sign before your moon, the sign of your moon, and the sign after your moon. And it's a 7-year period. And this is where Saturn really puts you to the test. And for some people, they do great. They pass with flying colors. But with other people, it's like, oh, so difficult. And right now, the United States is in a Sati Sati. So you can see as soon as Saturn went into Capricorn, this is when all this craziness started. So, this is going to be another 7 years until we're out of it. And so next year, Saturn goes into Aquarius and will be conjunct Neptune. So how do you see that playing out?
Well, Saraswati is definitely an important time period where you're letting go of old emotional karmas because Saturn is transiting very close to your moon. So initially, Saturn will pass 2.5 years in the sign before your moon, where you are trying to let go of your past kind of karmas and so forth. You're trying to deal with losses, things you have to let go of, things you have to get rid of, and so forth. and then it will transit over your moon, what is kind of challenging and channelizing your emotions in the most constructive way, understanding and aligning your own emotions with the actual reality of how things are playing out. And then you have Saturn actually going to the second house from your moon, which is eventually the new you that you have changed is actually going to shift in the values that you gather also, and trying to build up the values formed by the emotional kind of challenge which you've been through and so forth. So Sadhisati is definitely a challenging time for people who are there and so forth. They eventually recognize that they need to rely upon themselves, they need to rely upon the reality the way it is and so forth, trying to accept reality for what it is also. It's very important period of our life also, Sadhisati. Now, when Saturn turns to Neptune, usually remember Saturn is a reality planet, right? So Neptune is the planet that can take you all the way wildly out there. Yeah, so you can expect some really fun times at that point. You can expect some really some hardcore reality kind of thing coming crashing down upon the Neptunian people. That's the way I would interpret that. I would even say that with Neptune in general, there's also this god of fantasy in many ways. So you can think that the fantasies begin to be either some very fantastic ideas will come to fruition as an actual thing, but then at the same time there would also be this challenging themes for some people who are extremely Neptunian also. That's also the other aspect to that. So there might be a time period where you might be forced to accept what is reality and then merge with your and literally confront your fantasies in a practical way also. So it's a very important thing. We do have stories that are, driving our mind and driving our lives and so forth. When Saturn comes over all those stories, suddenly, it's taking a different turn. Suddenly you actually have to face reality for what it is also. It's an important aspect also. So the reality of time, right? The reality of mortality, the reality of decay and time and all that. So it's an important thing we all need to really be aware about. And Saturn really does puts us to the test so as to understand and accept our own limitations so that we can work within our limitations. And many times we'll find natives going through isolating periods during this time period so that they themselves can actually improve themselves, in the end of it. And you'll see that it's a naturally expected kind of a thing also. You'll see things actually improving on that regard also, yeah.
Very good. Yeah, well, in 2023 and 2024, we have two solar eclipses that are going over the United States. And so, Saturn, because our moon is in Shettabishak. So when Saturn's there, he's going to be right on top of the United States moon. And then transiting Neptune's going to be there. And then they're both going to go up to Pisces. And there's going to be like 5 or 6 planets in Pisces for the solar eclipse, both solar eclipses that happen. And it's in the 4th house for the United States. So really, the way I feel it's heading is that we're kind of heading to a spiritual revival in a way with all of these planets in Pisces in the homeland. And that all of the hardship we're going through with Seti, they always say, don't fear Saturn because he really isn't that bad of a guy. If you just work, do the work, just do the work. And then at the end of the Seti, he'll leave you a gift at the door before he leaves.
Yes.
And so it's Mars you have to be afraid of because Saturn delays but never denies. That's Mars's job. So, if you just look at it that way as, Saturn's the adult. He just wants us to grow up, Yeah,
definitely. That's true. Yeah, Saraswati, there's a very famous book. It's called, I believe, The Greatness of Saturn by Robert Soboda. It's a very good therapeutical book for people who are going through Saraswati. Reading that book, you read about the main character going through his trials and tribulations, and then by the end of it, you begin to realize, okay, it's not as bad. I'm not as bad as what he's going through. But then you begin to see how the main character actually, King Vikramaditya, actually, got a lot of his blessings. Whatever he lost, he regained that and more. So it's a very important thing. There are some very important life lessons that Saturn is trying to teach you also. It's very important in that regard. So yeah.
Yeah, I love Shani. He's taught me a lot, and So, and he gives great rewards, like I said. So if you just, work hard and be disciplined and responsible, and then it will pay off. So, okay, you guys. So thank you very much for joining us. And as usual, if you like this video, please like it and subscribe to the channel. And look for the rest of the videos in the series. It's in a separate playlist just for the grahas through the nakshatras. So thank you very much. Namaste. And until next time, we will do Rahu. So thank you very
Sure.
much.
Yeah. Namaste. Thank you.
Namaste.